Welcome back to the Wise Divine Women podcast, where I help you go from fed up to faith fueled, helping you to become the wise divine woman that God has called you to be. Today I have Alexandra Yair, Yair,
Geyer.
Geyer. Oh my goodness, sorry. And she is a medical doctor and hormone specialist, and amongst many other things that she has trained. And I am just looking so forward to our conversation. Welcome to the show, and I thank you so much for your kindness for being part of my mission, helping
Thank you
women.
so much. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So, not only are you based online, but where is your office located?
Yeah, so we are located in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. So we have two locations in Burke, Virginia and Vienna, Virginia.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it looks to be a beautiful summer down there. So
It
it's so,
is.
yeah, so wonderful. So, what brought you to this point in your life? Why women's health?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like many of us, my route was not direct. I was trained in a conventional medical setting. I um, did medical school at University of Maryland, and I did my residency in emergency medicine. I liked emergency medicine because I felt like I could make a big impact there. You know, I could meet people in their most dire situations and perhaps change the course of their lives and make a big impact. And although I learned a lot and I gained a lot of skills, I found that in some ways in my training, we lacked something that people were looking for. I found a lot of people coming to me, friends, family, not only people in the ER who just didn't feel right, who felt like something was off. And there were those exciting moments in the ER where I got to save lives and bring people back from the brink. But a lot of what I was seeing was chronic illness, people who are coming back with the same complaints over and over again. And although we could patch them up, they would they would get a little better, but invariably return in a similar state. And I experienced some burnout myself, um, and I felt like there has to be something more. You know, we know more in medicine now, and I got an amazing opportunity to actually buy a retiring doctor's practice. And he already had a great internal medicine practice, and he had a weight loss program that was very successful. And so I started doing that, and I started working with a lot of women. And I found what was really missing was the weight hormone connection. And again, I was very interested in, yes, we can keep you alive, we can prevent major illness, but how do we make you feel better? How do we help you enjoy those 20, 30 years of life that modern medicine has allowed us to live? So
Hmm.
this is sort of
Yeah,
how
so
I
many
how
times. Yeah, so many times you see like women are walking, they're exercising, they're eating right, they're doing the do, and they still do not feel good, right? And that's
exactly.
right, and that's why you come along linking those missing pieces. It's so incredible, and it's the same. I think all the hospitals and or medical practices are finding themselves in that missing portion, which you've that gap that you've walked into, because traditional medicine you've got 5, 10, 15 minutes, and chronic illness doesn't fit in that little time slot, and you feel bad enough to go to emerge where they can't help you, right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
So many issues that way, and I'm so thankful that you've stepped up and be part of that integrative medicine practice where we're starting to fill in the gap for the medical field, right? Yeah.
Yes,
It's so
absolutely.
beautiful, so beautiful. So, weight loss and hormones, please continue. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, again, I think many women come to the doctor and they're not feeling quite right. And we do a bunch of lab tests and they're told you're normal. This is just the human experience, right? And what I was taught in my conventional training is how to provide reassurance. And that this is normal. That's kind of the only prescription I had. So when I started learning on my own, I found there's so much more that we can do, and women are often have been forgotten. in especially in medicine, where there are actually many studies that show that although women live longer than men, our quality of life in those last 20 to 30 years is actually lower. So there is a whole body of research now, and certainly hormones play a huge role into it about what we can do to improve vitality, how we can feel better at any age. And I think there's a lot there. And what I usually ask women, we go through, I really want to get to know every woman that I work with. So I want to know what's important to you. I can check your labs, make sure you're okay, but what do we want to work on? Is it energy? Are you feeling like there's so much I want to do with my life, but I just don't have the energy to show up the way I want to? Is it quality sleep? This constant feeling like I go to bed, but then I'm awake 3 hours later and I can't get back to sleep and it ruins my days that, I have this otherwise wonderful life. And I talk to a lot of women who are in a stage of life, whether they're in their 40s, 50s, or beyond, where they have accomplished a lot of what they wanted, where they may have had the career they wanted, they have a family, but now they want to enjoy it and they feel like something is missing, like their bodies are not cooperating to help them live this life that they created. And that's what I'm there to help them figure out.
Oh, absolutely, because it's this sense of that career burnout, and it's that hormonal change, and it's speaking to this women in that premenopausal, that perimenopausal phase of things to start preparing, like you're forewarning them, and they're sometimes they get it. But for myself, postmenopausal, it literally feels to me like I was in a time warp. And not that I
Mm,
had a lot of physical menopausal symptoms, but that brain fog is real.
hmm.
Like
Yeah,
speech
absolutely.
and energy and afternoon naps, lots of afternoon naps. So once
Yes.
understanding my eating more from a functional point of view, right?
Hmm.
Understanding where my hormones were, those beautiful tests, the gut dysbiosis, and then stepping back and looking at the broader picture, which for you is so exciting for the client to really step back and take a bigger picture rather than just being, no, your blood work is fine. You're fine. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with your thyroid, right? So it's
Exactly.
this new stream of medicine which provides this bigger, well-rounded thought process for the person to feel, okay, I am being looked at and I am being understood, and my symptoms, I am not crazy, right? So
Right.
it's,
That's
mhm,
so important. Absolutely. Yeah. And those hormones changes start earlier than many women suspect. We could start having some of that hormone roller coaster as early as age 35. And,
yeah.
I do work with a number of younger women who are not in menopause and who may still be 5, 10 years from menopause, but still they are experiencing that lack of vitality. They're just not feeling quite right. And when we look at their hormones and we look at other things as well, like you talked about gut health or a level of inflammation, we can sort of say, this isn't you. You're not going crazy. Your body is actually going through something. And there are ways that we can bring you into balance. And I think that's what's part of what's missing in medicine and my big interest. In medical school, I learned a lot about disease. I learned about how to treat disease, about how to manage disease. But, my big interest in practice is how do we create health? How do we create a state of health? And that's something we don't learn enough about, where what are the conditions that we can come to bring into our lives to really create a state of health, no matter what age we are living in.
No, I think that's right. I mean, and being part of thermography in New Jersey and here in Ontario, that's a common thing. Like, yes, I go see my doctor. He can't help it. I'm like, yes, he's brilliant, amazing. The doctors are incredible because they can diagnose and they can treat and they're beautiful. But if you need this, before the scenes, where you are now, that's where you come into play, right? That integrative,
Yeah.
functional portion of things. Um, so where is your practice heading now? Like, how is that incorporating looking forward? Are you speaking to, are you finding period health being part of the picture as well, or strictly just perimenopausal? Because these women, I find, are suffering earlier than what they think they are. It's a rude awakening for them when you start dropping perimenopause into the phrase. But right? They're like, "What? I'm only 35 or I'm 39." But what things are happening in the world that are bringing us to this point of all of these quick changes for women?
That's such a great question, and we certainly are experiencing a different set of conditions than we ever have. And our environment has changed so drastically in the last 50 years for many reasons. Our food environment has changed significantly. You know, even 50 years ago, we were cooking and eating most of our meals at home. There was no distraction of screens, and there's in the last 50 years we've seen the advent of what I like to call hyper palatable foods. So I think it's Doritos who makes that commercial, you can't have just one. That's not a good thing. You know, that is something that is an achievement that food scientists have achieved, and it's great marketing, but it is not good for our bodies. Our diet is laden with non-food chemicals. So uh, rather than eating things that are coming from the earth or animal products, even the animal products that we're eating are now treated with multiple hormones, with antibiotics, with other chemicals. And even some of our vegetables, unfortunately, are not clean. But far beyond that, you know, Red 40, some of the other, the number of ingredients that you can't recognize on your food labels is very high. And I think we're starting to become more aware of that. And I love that you brought up the gut microbiome because it is so integral to women's hormone health. And I often have a discussion with people about Diet Coke. Should I be drinking Diet Coke? And sure, it doesn't have calories, but the chemicals in there are destroying your gut microbiome. And we actually have more bugs in our gut, in our colon, than we have cells in our entire body. We have this whole population of living creatures that are talking to our body and that are regulating different functions. So if we are ingesting a lot of non-food chemicals, which is really what products like Diet Coke have in them, there's going to be a disturbance to that, and women will see a disturbance to their hormone levels. And you know, I know we're talking about women, but men are seeing this too. We there was a recent study that I thought was really fascinating that men now at age 45 have on average 200 points lower testosterone than men who were 45 years old 20 years ago. So something has drastically changed in our environment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that's I've talked about it previously in a podcast, and it's the ranges. We have to remember with blood work, the ranges change as per population. So
Hmm.
if you look at the range that at that time to what the range is now for men, it's completely different, but you're okay. So and I
Right.
feel so bad for men because they need testosterone. They need that ability to produce that for energy, for sex drive, for all sorts of different things, just to function. And I think that's certainly a missed uh, people that I think are suffering silently as well. And I'm glad there are lots of doctors out there that have stepped up to that as well. But women, please, if your husband is not well, please connect them with Alexandra, or she has associates that deal specifically with men. But oh my goodness, they need help too. Just as much as you're on the crazy train, men are on the crazy train too. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so important, honestly. And I think this awakening for women. Yes, we can talk about all that, and we can not change a lot of the environment outside of our own little planting and eating and environmental cleaning supplies and what we put on our body, those types of things. So outside of that, in the world where you work and the environmental aspects of things, I think we just really have to understand it and allow our bodies to function better. Like, we all can't live the dream of a 10-acre farm in the middle of the bush, because there's lots of chemicals there now too. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's allowing ourselves to respond better, training our bodies or retraining our bodies and our nervous systems to respond better to the environmental stressors. And it's that base education of knowing where you are so then you can adapt, right? When, especially when it comes to
absolutely.
bioidenticals, right? Like, we can
Yes.
take the progesterone and take the estrogen, but there are other factors that may not be making it work. How does that work for you? How are you training women to understand, I want the hormones, but it's not working? Now what?
That's such a great question. That's such a great question. And um, yes, I think for me in my practice, I think that we can use medications, we can use bioidentical hormones, we can use supplements, but they're all icing on the cake. We really we need to work on our lifestyle, and that doesn't have to be drastic. I think that for sometimes it's scary, you know, as women we're busy and life is full and there are children with preferences and other people in the home and lots of demands. But little by little, making changes to care for ourselves. And I think that's another thing. As women, we are trained by society to some extent not to put ourselves first. We have to take care of everyone else and yield to other people's preferences, but finding small ways to put ourselves first. And I think, you know, and we touched briefly on weight, and weight is often part of the discomforts that happens during perimenopause, where we're doing the same thing and all of a sudden weight is creeping up and we don't recognize the body that we're living in, where we used to do certain things and the body responded, and now all of a sudden weight is coming in different places. So I think one of the most powerful tools is just trying to choose whole foods and where possible. So eh, we talked about these hyper palatable foods where you have one and then you just keep going. So it's very hard to actually really overeat whole foods. Most people won't sit down and eat 4 apples in a row. Whereas if you're getting the same amount of sugar and carbs from chips, it's very easy to go through the whole bag. So we have a more natural stopping point when it comes to whole foods, most whole foods. Not that it's impossible to overeat them, but most people are not taking down 4 apples in a row. So just trying to choose whole foods, looking at your ingredient list and trying to choose foods that have fewer ingredients. And so I think that's really foundational where possible, of course, to a reasonable extent. And and I think it's a process, you know. I think many of us want to make huge sweeping changes right away, and then when it doesn't work, it's out the window. But I think making small changes slowly, having an off day is not a big deal, but trying to make it a priority to take care of ourselves in that way. Um, and movement, of course, is really important for women as well. And finding some way of moving your body, staying active in a way that brings you joy. I think, you know, there's a lot of people talking about what's the ideal exercise, what should you be doing? And of course, there's a lot of guidelines, but I think the number one criteria is it should make you happy. It should bring you joy. If you can get outside and move your body and feel some of those endorphins. If you hate getting on the treadmill, don't get on the treadmill. You know, there's so many forms of exercise out there now that I think it's worth trying to take the time to find something that makes you feel joy, because you know we can talk about all these things, eating the right foods, exercise, getting rid of chemicals, but also finding joy in your life, whether it's through movement or connection, is so important for our hormone health and everything else as we age.
Yeah, that's so true. It is sometimes that lack of joy, and then that keeps those things bottled up inside that we can't do the things that we desire. I'm often reminding women like they are lifting weights and they're doing their cardio and they're doing these things. They list it all out for me. And I'm
Hmm.
always like, but where's your fun? Like, where's the joy in this? Or even more so, where's your downtime? You need to
Right.
where's your rejuvenation? Are you sitting in, yin, or sitting in restorative yoga, or pausing, doing some Pilates, practicing your breath, whatever it is, even simple Tai Chi or walking through I leisurely walk through the forest. It's Everyone has this list of things that need to be accomplished during the day, which is great. But the
Hmm.
balance to things is this parasympathetic relaxation, heal and digest that we seem to not spend enough time in to balance out that day or even week, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's such an important concept that you brought up, because we often think that, my hormones are off and that's why I feel terrible. And it's also connected, how we treat ourselves, what we spend our time doing affects our hormones. And our hormones affect how we feel, but we have to treat it from both sides. And I love what you talked about with the parasympathetic activation, where, now again, how things have changed. Uh, And it may be that 50, 100 years ago, life was harder for our predecessors in terms
Right.
of what they had to go through. But there's a different, our lives have become easier, but the stress is sort of insidious where we're constantly connected. People can reach us at any time. We have access to news from the entire world. And it's these stressors that we maybe don't even recognize as stressors that keep us in this very tight sort of nervous system wound up place. And we've also to some degree lost the art of rest. I think our ancestors 50, 100 years ago, they knew how to rest, where
Hmm.
sure life was hard and there were more obstacles to overcome, but there was a time there where they couldn't be reached, and the news from all over the world was not coming in from every angle. And I think especially as women, we have in some ways lost the art of rest, of not scrolling, of finding something that's really relaxing. I and I often talk to women, and it's hard for them to. They want to be productive, just like you said. Here's my to-do
Yeah,
list. I
I
did my
think
weight training.
yeah, I think martyrdom, like being a martyr,
Martyrdom.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's old culture. You see those types of grandmothers or mothers being that sort of martyr. And I think
Hmm.
now it's different. It's not so much that you are the governess of your family, but it's this accomplishment. I have to finish.
Yes.
There's so many things that I need to do. And as you were talking, I'm thinking it's so true. Like we don't have this massive stress every single day. Like I need to
Hmm.
put food on my plate and on the table and all this. No, it's all these little low grade stressors that
Hmm.
keep us bound. And then that really just brings into play also how EMFs are playing a role in I believe it's more of this keeping our body in this vibration, this this sensory vibration where we can't relax.
Hmm.
Because
Yes.
people had a better circadian rhythm, probably back, in the 50s and 60s, because we didn't have all of that. So when you
Right.
brought in that vibration, that EMF, that radiation, even though it's low grade,
Hmm.
you can't help it. It's there, it's everywhere. It's that we can't get the body to calm. And I think
Yes.
that may be the next strategy for people to figure, you know, not wearing the tinfoil hat, but that is a good concept sometimes when you really, if you're that person that feels the fluorescent lights or feels
Hmm.
that someone has that on. Those are things that they think about, right? And that just not only flips their hormones out of play, right? That's cortisol and digestive function, just a cascade, right?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, we may see more of that down the road. I hope not, but that seems to
Yeah.
be the case, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I think it's important to, we have to be intentional about activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, and that in itself, so those, just to go on a little tangent here, those studies on the nervous system were done on men. So fight or flight is something that men do. And when we look at women, we do a lot more fawn or freeze. And that may not always be recognized as nervous system dysregulation, but it very much is, where we become pleasers or we're sort of frozen. And it may not look like the fight or flight that was traditionally recognized in men, but it is nervous system dysregulation. So that's our sympathetic nervous system. Our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest system that restores our body. And I think that we have to be intentional about activating it. And you brought up the yoga, which I'm a huge fan of: yin yoga, restorative yoga, meditation. Some people don't want to do those things. They're not called to do those things. So I think that, a bath, taking time for yourself and taking a warm bath. Adult coloring books are fantastic. They're this sort of form of meditation without actually having to sit and meditate. And anytime we're in nature, I think just seeing beauty, seeing natural beauty, and allowing ourselves to sort of immerse ourselves in nature can really bring on that parasympathetic nervous system. So I think stress relief is not always exercise or going hard or something like that, but connection with loved ones, doing something that again just, I think we know intuitively when that parasympathetic nervous system is online. Um, and I think we have to be intentional about choosing activities to bring it up, bring it on.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, very, very true. Like I totally forgot the fawn and freeze. You said it, and I was like, oh yeah, because that makes perfect sense. Because it's not like people are fists up.
Right.
It's paralyzing. It's frozen.
Yes.
Deer in the headlight look. And I can relate to that. Like there are times I'm
Yeah.
just shut right down. My son gets the same way as well. He just shuts down.
Hmm.
And very interesting because I forgot about that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. It's more of that, again, a lot of medical science is based on that, done on men. And again, yeah, and some women actually faint or they feel like they might faint. And sometimes we're seeing more and more women getting diagnosed with something called POTS, or postural orthostatic tachycardia, which is basically a fainting illness where we lose consciousness. And I think that, and it is nervous system dysregulation. And to some degree, it's this extreme version of it where it's a little bit too much and we check out entirely.
And so what therapies are they using to help women with POTS?
That's a
Because
great
I have
question.
heard of that before. So it's a new sort of terminology to things. I didn't
Right.
realize it was the fainting disease. I thought it was
Yeah.
more autoimmune issues, but
Right. I don't think we don't have great treatment for POTS right now, other than, so there are medications like propranolol that kind of change your heart rate. Um, but I think looking at the root cause of that, sometimes I think it is really um, years and years of stress, sometimes trauma, and trying to rehabilitate the nervous system and teach your body that it's safe to sort of function in the world. And sometimes there can be triggers like a past infection, something. like Lyme disease or mold illness or even Epstein-Barr that can kind of trigger this nervous system dysfunction. But I think it's
Mhm.
one of those things that's really multifactorial, that there are so many things that go into it that there probably isn't one clear solution. But again, trying to bring your body back into balance. And I think for women with whether it's POTS or a lot of other things, trying to send safety signals back to the body
Mhm.
where we don't have to hold on and fight or flee or, fawn. But trying to bring regulation back and safety, whether that's through whole foods, whether it's through gentle exercise, whether it's through parasympathetic activation, whether it's through connection. And um, I think it's a journey.
That's so true, right? That's
Yeah.
just so, yeah, because there's so many women with this. Um, a lot of women have new heart issues. Maybe they've always been there because the internet or talking to people, you have just such the craze of the internet and Facebook and socials. But there seems to be quite a few women now that have this heart issue that's happening. And that can make sense to me when it's this overregulation or over dysregulation of the nervous system, of course, will affect the heart. And they just
Hmm.
can't, you know, they're always either ill or always not 100% and they have no energy. And of course, their doctors want to put them on heart medications when nothing's
Hmm.
really wrong with their heart. So it's very fascinating, and it's unfortunate for so many women to be caught in such a spiral. When you get to a certain age, and that unfortunately it's not at 60 anymore, it's becoming less, where we are getting hit when our body has said that's enough,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
enough. We need to stand down and we need to sort of regroup and
Right.
understand ourselves better, right?
Yeah, and I think just briefly to touch on that, I think
Mm-hmm.
you said it so well, but knowing when it's time to resource ourselves and just going back to diet culture, I think historically women have been trained to make themselves smaller, to restrict, to really sort of hold on tight and move more, excess cardio, eat 800 calories a day or something crazy. Of course, that's a super low number, but I think that in perimenopause or in times of illness, we need to resource. We need to build up. It's not about cutting things out. It's about what does my body need. It's make your food a scavenger hunt for nutrients and minerals and the things to build up our bodies. Let's make ourselves strong and
Mm-hmm.
and I think we need to really get away from the culture of restriction and
Yeah.
feed ourselves in so many ways.
I find myself in that still, even though I teach about it, I talk about it with women daily, but it's that retraining that mindset to that this is actually how much food you're supposed to eat, right?
Yes.
Because I'm of the Atkins era and or
Mm-hmm.
HCG diet era, which I've done as well, which is absolute
Mm-hmm.
nonsense. But it works well when you need it. But it's this sense of your body needs more food than you actually think it does. And
Mm-hmm.
never mind just like a plate of salad and vegetables and fruit, but the protein, the amount of
Yes. Oh,
90
yes.
grams to 100 grams of protein,
Mm-hmm.
120 grams for active women. That's a lot of food to get our mind processing over, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah,
Wow, and
absolutely.
it is retraining women, and like yourself, we were talking to begin with this perimenopause age group where
Mm-hmm.
we need to start teaching them at younger ages to prepare themselves for longevity, not at 50 backpedaling, preparing themselves for longevity. Like we still do
100%.
that because women are in so much need, but it's this stepping back. And I'm even finding, talking with my daughters and their friends, your period health, right? What is going on with your period? Like that
Mm-hmm.
really just setting the stage for fertility and for longevity, right?
Yes, Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And there's so much there. Yes. We're starting so much earlier. And some women,
Yeah.
yes, there are some women who are having horrible PMS and some women who are having long, heavy periods. And there's usually reasons for that. Um, and yeah, I think we need to train for the later decades of our lives. We're not just exercising to have strong bodies or look good in a bikini, but you are actively training, whatever age you're at right now, you're training at what your quality of life will be in 15 years. And
Yeah.
rest is part of that training.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh. We could talk for hours because there's
Yes.
just so many great things to talk about. I for some reason, the word talking about keeps coming into my head is how are you addressing libido for women? Because that's a topic I love talking about, but we don't get many
Hmm.
practitioners or doctors in that actually focus in on bioidenticals, and that may be a conversation. But do you have many women coming into the practice that are discussing libido? Like that's always this, but no one really like, when it comes to menopause, women are like, "Oh, I have no libido," but they don't really care to change it because their husbands can't anyways because their libido is just as bad. So,
Right.
but there are women, and this is a discussion. And do you have time to sort of open into that?
Yes, absolutely. And I love
Thank
talking
you.
about this. And it's something that I usually end all my questions on when I talk to women is how's your sexual health? And we talk about libido and we talk about vaginal health too, because for some
Thank you.
women there's a lot of vaginal dryness, there's vaginal atrophy,
Mm-hmm.
and we have tools now to improve that. And of course, you're completely right. Some women are like, I have no libido. My husband doesn't either. Please let's not talk about it. But for a lot of other women,
Yeah.
they want that. That is still a part of their
Yeah.
lives, and it should be, and it's an important part of our lives. So as our hormones change, libido can certainly go down. And women have the three sex hormones that are most important in women are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And I think all three of them are important when it comes to libido and having them balanced. We don't often think about testosterone in women, but it's an important hormone. And actually, if you measure the amount, just the raw amount that we actually have more testosterone than estrogen in healthy states. So, testosterone is the hormone for drive, and not just sex drive, but drive to get up and go to do what you want to do in the world, drive to exercise, but also for sex drive. And we can replace testosterone for women, and I see a lot of women who have sort of rock bottom levels of testosterone, and we can replace it using a cream that just goes on the arm. Sometimes we replace testosterone vaginally, and vaginal estrogen is also very important. We have different ways of applying vaginal estrogen, and since we're talking about this, vaginal estrogen cream can be really important for both our vaginal health and our urinary health. As we lose that vaginal estrogen, we get more UTIs, and also the nerves that go to our sex organs degrade over time. And if we apply that estrogen, it can actually preserve our sexual function and the way women experience pleasure. So I think balancing hormones and giving you back what you don't have is helpful. But there's also some natural, my favorite natural supplement that can really improve sex drive in women is something called maca root, and it is an adaptogen. So adaptogens are herbs that can modulate our hormones appropriately, meaning that if it can either increase or decrease some of our hormonal function. And I found women often benefit from taking maca for both energy levels and improving libido. So those
Yeah.
are great things, and and I think again the foundational things: eating right, getting enough sleep, exercise, moving your body, moving your muscles. That also plays into libido because libido is also about blood flow, and all those things optimize blood flow to all our organs. And it's very hard to have a sex drive if you have no energy. So, so
Yes.
it
Very,
all plays
yeah, it's
a
all
role,
there.
but yes, yes,
Yeah, it's so important. And yeah, that is just it's you need the balance of things and you need it to be in optimal order because at 56, there's still so much more I want to accomplish. So
hmm
understanding and asking these questions and getting the tests so I have a better understanding has really opened up um, that train of thought for me that I thought was, oh, it's just me. But understanding where I was with everything gave me a better understanding of what I needed to focus on, right? Which was the proper food and proper rest rather than, oh, I need estrogen. No, I'm actually fine, which was so weird. And my
yeah,
testosterone is actually fantastic, which is makes
hmm
sense. And so it's for women who, if you don't know what's going on, then it's like you have to reach out to people, to women or practitioners like Alexandra, where it's so important for you to understand and not feel like you're throwing paint at a wall, but being really specific, understanding the needs of your body. And vaginal dryness is not normal. So it's a normal function when your body's out of balance, right? It's a normal thing for maybe 80-year-old women or 70-year-old women. Bladder infections are not normal, right,
right,
until later into life, not even. And it's so important for you to understand how important estrogen is and testosterone is. And I think with and I'm so glad that everyone is talking about it, but the new research with hormone replacement has come out, and it's necessary not just for sex health but for brain health and heart health, right? Like we have to be
absolutely,
better about it. So yeah,
yes.
it's so important, and it's great just to be thinking and starting about libido. Like that's so much more fun than talking about brain health. So
Absolutely. And so important. And again,
it
pleasure,
is.
joy is good for you,
Right.
and
Right.
we
And
should be experiencing it.
it was funny because you're talking about it and I'm thinking, you're right. Our cortisol levels would come down if we just had more sex
Yeah.
and or more pleasuring of ourselves, right? If we even did
Right.
that. And our heart rates and our brain and our stress, like there's our sleep would be better if we
hmm
just had more sex. Like that's just the
Yeah.
solution to the world. Just have more sex. No.
Right. Yes. There you go. There you go. Yes. And we have
Oh my,
tools to help us
and
feel more
there's
receptive to
tools.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And even that conversation with pelvic floor therapy is again not new, but new to most women. Again, these things are not normal, and there are people out there to help you with solutions, and
Yes.
not to be afraid to don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes. Yes.
What is your goal? What do you want? Where's your
Right.
happiness? Go find it.
Yes. So well said. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, Alexandra, I thank you so much for spending this time this morning
Yeah,
with
thank
me.
you. This was so lovely.
I love it. So, final thought. What is your word of wisdom that you find yourself giving women more often?
Okay, you're ending on the hard one.
Always, yes.
Yeah, I think, you matter, and how you feel matters. And there is it's important for you to put yourself first, and there are times where you really need to prioritize yourself and your health, and make room for the things that bring you happiness, and improve the quality of your life. And I think it's important to be surrounded by women who are doing that, and to start creating that example for younger women of how we move through life, and especially through hormonal changes and menopause. And um, sometimes in medical literature, there's women become somewhat irrelevant after their fertile years, and that is absolutely not the case. These hormonal shifts, they can be a real revolution, and we should be entering each stage of our lives with the vitality to really thrive and enjoy, and I think it's worth it to prioritize yourself in that way, and find other women who will support you in doing that.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. It's been a pleasure. Thank
Yes, it's
you.
been wonderful. Thank you.
You. So thank you to all of us joining today. Please, I'll add Alexandra's notes in her and where to find her and all the beautiful services that she offers in clinic and online, I'm sure. And have yourself an incredible day today. Enjoy this holiday week here in Canada. It's Canada Day, and then you have July 4th at the end of the week. So it's a big holiday around North America. Enjoy. Thank you so much for joining us.